Now, back in the 1990s, if you're a musician and you had a hot song and you were talented, it equated to riches, fame, and notoriety. You know what I mean? It meant that you could actually make a living and be a superstar if you had a hot song and you were talented. But that was when you had something tangible and physical to sell. You know what I mean? You had the actual record or the actual CD or the actual tape, right? Something physical. Now, as streaming came into play, what happened was they removed the money-making item, which was the actual tangible CD, record, or cassette tape. And a lot of musicians, you know, a lot of musicians lost out on millions only because the format of music completely changed. In comes the new era, which is a streaming era. Now, streaming means that, okay, it means that a musician is no longer going to get paid what they're worth. So what a musician has to do now is become their own brand. They have to become their own record label. You know what I mean? So they need something tangible to sell. So since they removed the CD or the record or the tape, the artist themselves became that tangible item. So you as an artist became that tangible item. So you have to sell yourself. You have to brand yourself. It's you. Every single time you go out there and you're performing a song, you're not selling your song, you're selling yourself. You know what I mean? So meaning to say that you can have the number one item, number one track on radio. You can have the number one track on radio. But the thing about it is that when you're doing a live show, nobody's going to buy your merchandise because of your song. They're going to buy your merchandise because of you. They'll listen to your song because the song's hot. But when somebody actually decides to buy a t-shirt, a hat, you know, some merchandise that says that has your name on it, all of that is because of you. So what that means is that there is no such thing as cocky, arrogant artists no more. And if you are, it's going to be a very long time before you get paid. You know what I mean? You got to be personable. You got to be real. You got to be human. And I think that's why the transition between physical items, physical CDs and streaming became extremely hard for musicians to do, because they didn't understand the concept that they were the brand right now. You know what I mean? They were the brand. So independent record labels, some of them understood what was happening. They understood that this number one track that I have on radio right now, right? This number one track that I have, it's not going to do nothing for me unless I attach something to it. You know what I mean? I attach something that's tangible that I could sell. I attach a clothing line. I attach movies. You know what I mean? I become an actor. You know what I mean? I attach a brand behind it. So therefore, I reach out to major corporations, whether it be a car or whether it be, I'm selling, soap, I'm selling skincare and all that kind of stuff. I have to attach a brand to my name, or else this number one track means nothing whatsoever, shape or form. Because streaming, it's not going to pay you anything. But what music would do, music is the only thing on the face of this planet that you could be a nobody the day before, and all of a sudden everybody knows your name the day after once your song hits number one. It's the only thing on the planet. You know what I mean? Sports, you can't do it, because you got to be a star from day one. You can't fluke making it to the NHL or NFL or NBA. You can't fluke that. You can fluke music, you come out with a hard track, and that's all you need, right? You could come out with a track, and that's all you need. Now, what I'm trying to say here is that if you watch every single musician that's still relevant to this day, okay? I'm talking about musicians that are billionaires, that are worth hundreds of millions, are individuals that were popular in music, but that money never came from music. It became that money, the music got them a recognizable name, and they took their celebrity and sold that celebrity. You know what I mean? They took their celebrity and sold that celebrity. And there was only one individual in the 90s that kept on repeating that same statement. Sell your celebrity. Sell your celebrity. It was Damon Dash, Rockefeller. He's been saying that from day one. You know, now everybody else is catching on. You know? Another person that was doing that as well too was Steve Stout. You know? He was the one that put Pusha T in the realms of McDonald's. So Pusha T was the first one that actually created the jingle. We're loving it. And I believe Justin Timberlake was the one that sung it, but Pusha T wrote it. You know what I mean? If you look past, in the past, Chris Brown came out with a Wrigley's gum commercial. You know what I mean? If you look at also individuals like, let's say, what would you say? If you look up individuals like LL Cool J, okay? When he first did that Gap commercial and he incorporated FUBU into that Gap commercial. FUBU was down here. LL Cool J did his thing. FUBU was up here. All of a sudden, they're making hundreds of $millions a year. What I'm trying to say is that musicians, rappers, it doesn't matter who you are, concentrate on your brand, because your brand is everything. You know, that's where all the money is going to come from. That's where people are going to want to pay you hundreds or millions of dollars for your celebrity, for your influence. You're not going to get paid from streaming. But streaming is extremely important because streaming has the ability to reach millions of people. But you're not going to get paid anything from streaming. You know what I mean? Period. So what you do, you use streaming and a hot song to create your brand. And then you sell your brand to corporations. You know what I mean? And once again, if you actually look at every individual that's either close to $1 billion or making $1 billion, they got there not because of their music, but because of their brand. You know what I mean? Rihanna, she's worth $1 billion. She's probably one of the highest selling R&B artists ever of all time. But all of her money has come from a makeup line. You know what I mean? Dr. Dre, the best producer, probably arguably of all time. All of his money doesn't come from music, even though he's the best. It comes from a product, Beats by Dre. You know what I mean? Jay-Z's billions are not made from his music. It's made from multiple businesses that he has. Rock Nation, his liquor brands, like everything outside of music. You see what I'm saying? And I could keep on going. Kanye, his billions, or former billions, it all came from outside of music. Anybody that's relevant, that's making the money the executives are making, were able to transition and able to sell their celebrity, like Dame Dash has been saying from day one. And people are just catching on right now. You know what I mean? So yeah, definitely work on your craft. Definitely work on a hot song. Definitely work on the ability to captivate people's souls with your talent in music. But don't stop there. Once you do that, once you have this fan base, you say to yourself, okay, I got this fan base. What can I sell him? 50 Cent. Probably top 50 of all time. One of the highest selling rappers of all time. You know, probably the number one or number, besides Eminem, I think 50 Cent had the hottest debut ever in the history of hip hop. But all of his money comes from television right now. He took his music fan base that used to follow him, and he incorporated that fan base, and he sold them TV series, TV shows. And as you can see right now, he has dozens, I believe in the 20s, shows. You know what I mean? That's how you use your brand. Snoop Dogg. You know what I mean? Just look at what this guy is doing. He's the torchbearer for the Olympics. He has a cooking show with Martha Stewart. He has a football league. He's on Sesame Street. He's an actor. He had his own Snoopdeville, own Cadillac car, I believe. Everything outside of music. Snoop is a global brand and a global icon. But all of that stems from music. So you can never ever disrespect music and leave. But you have to understand that there's a time for music. And once that music is getting to a point of you tapped out of it, you have to be able to understand, how am I going to transition this into a career that stems longevity, you know? One perfect example of a hip-hop artist or an artist that took their music fan base and introduced them to a new genre or a new platform was Will Smith. You know what I mean? You know, the younger generation don't even realize Will Smith was one of the dopest rappers when he first came out. You know what I mean? They see him rap now and they're like, why is he rapping for? Dude been rapping from day one. Will Smith was the first Grammy winner. He literally created a Grammy award for hip hop. You know what I mean? So, and he was so popular when he was rapping, him and his DJ Jazzy Jeff, that he took that fan base once again and morphed it into TV and sitcoms. So they created a whole show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, around Will Smith, because they knew he was coming with a fan base already of millions of people. That's why that show was number one. Will Smith wasn't the greatest actor on the planet. You know what I mean? Alfonso and everybody else on the show, obviously they were genuine, legitimate actors. Will Smith just entered the rapping thing, but their attraction was Will Smith because he came with a fan base already. Okay? And when that show was finished, it actually finished at the top, that it was able to get syndicated all across the world. Up until today, it's still syndicated. It's still getting paid from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Will Smith once again took that same fan base and morphed it into acting. You know, at one point he was like one of the highest grossing actors on the planet. You know what I mean? I believe, I read somewhere where he was making about 20 plus millions a movie because of his fan base. He took his hip-hop fan base, morphed it into the sitcom Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now he doubled that fan base, took both of those fan bases, and then brought him onto the big screen. So now he created a new fan base with a big screen. You understand what I'm trying to say here? So somebody like Will Smith is going to be okay. It doesn't really matter what happens in his life. He's always going to be okay. So right now, he just recorded a brand new album and people don't understand. Sometimes when you enter new genres, meaning to say that when you go from hip hop from rapping to acting to movies, sometimes you forget where your core audience was. You know what I mean? 50 Cent every now and then he drops a song to let everybody to give respect and to give homage to his original fan base, which is people that loved his hip hop music. You know what I mean? Jay-Z does something similar as well too. You know? So Will Smith, he just kept on going so far that I believe he forgot who made him who he was, which is hip hop, his hip hop fan base. So now he morphs back into hip hop. And he hasn't missed a beat, you know what I mean? He's still nice. He's well into his 50s, but he's still nice because hip hop, even though the highest consumers of hip hop are between the ages of 14 to 24, technically as a rapper you get better with age, because rapping is a mind game. It's not a young sport in terms of you become a legend, you become skilled, the more you're able to tap into your mind, the flows, the melodies, the way you flip words and all that kind of stuff, that comes with time. So technically, contrary to a lot of what people believe, the older you are, the better you're gonna get. That's why to this day, you're not gonna find too many people that could out-rap Jay-Z. You're not gonna find too many people, regardless of age, that could out-rap Nas. You're not gonna find people that could out-rap Snoop Dogg. Put all these individuals, LL Cool J, even Will Smith, man, put them side by side with some new cats, and they're gonna give them a run for their money, these new kids, right? Obviously, they come with different flows and different cadence and different wordplay, but at the same time, if we're talking about the art of hip-hop, the skill of hip-hop, age is a deciding factor because you have more knowledge. That's why Eminem is still doing what he's doing. That's why Eminem is still doing what he's doing at a very high level in his 50s. And he's going to still be doing it in his 60s. You know? So to tie everything all together, 2025, 26, 27, if you're entering the realm and you say you want to be a rapper, that's the beginning step. Hip-hop, rapping, music is your business card. And that business card says that, yo, I got millions of fans that are willing to support me in anything I do. And now you got to take this business card and see how valuable this business card is. Take it to the movies, take it to the products, create clothing lines, create sitcoms, create movies, become CEOs, create record labels, create entities, create business ventures. Do not get stuck in the realm of just rapping to rap, because that's when it's over. That's when it's over. When you had a fan base of millions and you failed to realize that you were a brand and you just continued just rapping for the sake of rapping, and by the time you figured it out, you weren't relevant no more. You got to be able to take every level to the extreme and rebrand yourself. Until you rebrand yourself, you're always going to be some old dude that's trying to rap. But ain't nobody say Snoop Dogg's an old dude trying to rap, because he was able to move on to the next level. Ain't nobody going to say 50 Cent or Jay-Z or all these dudes or Nas. Nas is still putting out albums, but Nas has a Fortune 500 company. Like, he has multiple companies when it comes to tech, when it comes to startups. You know what I mean? Because he was able to understand the intricacies. Nas was able to understand the genius of branding. He was able to morph and take his brand and say to himself, it took me 20 years to create this brand. And now or 20 years to create this celebrity. So now let me sell this celebrity. And you know what? You're going to have a lot of buyers willing to put their product alongside your name. So that's what you do if you're getting into the music realm right now. Don't just stick with music or hip hop or rapping and then just rap to the death. Transition and move on to the next level.